Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik with Figure It Out Productions. The following video is part of our Quick Shoot series.
Hey guys, it's Adam here, and today I want to talk about a question I get more common than anything else on this channel, even videos that have nothing to do with it. I get this question all the time. Adam, how do you get the best video quality out of the PlayStation 2? And so today I decided, alright, I'm going to make a video and explain that. Now the super short answer to all of this, if that's all you want to know, is component cables, right here. Okay, if that's all you wanted, you're on your way, you're good to go. If you want to know why that is and some of the other alternatives like PS2 to HDMI, stick around and I'll explain. Now the PS2 is capable of multiple video outputs. First is RF, it's worthless, don't use it. Composite, which is the one that most of us are familiar with because it's what came with the console. I do not recommend this at all, it is fucking terrible. Next up is S-Video. This is almost not even worth mentioning because the odds of you using S-Video with a PS2, given how uncommon the cables are, and yet how non-beneficial they are, means you'd have to go out of your way to be using S-Video with this console, but whatever, we're acknowledging it. RGB SCART, not to be confused with just SCART. It's SCART in RGB mode. Looks quite good, but is not as good as Component. Component. Yes, now Component Digital is what I would recommend with this console. RGB SCART, as much as I love it, it's a format that you shouldn't use on anything really post Dreamcast. It had, like all the consoles in the 90s for the most part, benefit from it, but after that, just stop using RGB SCART. It's time to start using either Component or HDMI, as is the case with a few consoles later. But in this particular case, we got to use Component. Now, the beautiful thing about Component on the PlayStation 2 is that it is cheap, and I mean really affordable. Now, the PlayStation 2 had its own crap ton of different type of component cables, which ironically I don't recommend. Anything that was actually made for the PS2, don't bother. The PlayStation 3, on the other hand, had a crap ton of component cables, a lot of them very well made and a lot of them super cheap. Like this one's like $8. And the beautiful thing is that the PlayStation 2 is capable of supporting the PlayStation 3 component cables. So there you go. For like $8, you can upgrade the image quality on your PS2 and you'll be great. Most high-definition televisions support Component. There's very few that don't at this point, although they are starting to get phased out. But yeah, for the most part, you'll be good. Now, the warning though is that the PS2 does not clean up very well. It has really bad video quality. I mean really bad. Like, I can't think of a console post-NES that has a video quality this bad. Now, I can already sense a few people, I mean, I'm wearing the Vader thing, I'm a little bit strong with the Force, I can sense a disturbance in the keyboard. I can already see a bunch of people rage typing and saying, "How dare you say the PS2 has bad graphics? Fuck you!" I'm not talking about graphics. I'm not even talking about resolution. I'm talking about image clarity. They're three separate things that are often grouped together as if they're one totally interchangeable term, and they are not. Graphics are what is being rendered on the screen. It's your character moving around. If I were to say play Grand Theft Auto 3, but hook up through fucking RF, it's not like he's going to be rendered in 2 dimensions. It doesn't change the graphics. He's the same. It's just this wall of mud and shit in between him and you seeing it. That's the image clarity. RF gets so much junk in the way you can't see it. Something like this wipes all that away and allows you to see it much more vibrantly and clearly. Image clarity, not graphics. The difference between those two in particular is so wide and so vast. Me saying the image clarity is bad and someone saying fuck you, the graphics are great, is so, it's similar to me being like, you know what, I really don't like pickles, I think they're gross, and someone's saying, how dare you not like cake? Like, what? What the fuck are you talking about? That has nothing to do with anything. That's how wide the difference is. Okay? So, the graphics are fine, even the resolution's fine. Hell, it supports high definition, 1080i technically. However, it was almost never utilized. There was like 3 or 4 games on the PS2 that supports it. The only one I even know of was Gran Turismo 4. Most games and the console stick around 480i, and yeah, so there you go. But so for the most part, what I would recommend to most people is component cables. However, there is another step you can take if you're hardcore enough or lucky enough, and that is this: the PS2 to HDMI. Now, I bought this and I regret my purchase, but that doesn't mean you will. The device is not actually bad, I just can't use it. So the deal with this thing is it's just a little box thing. Here you go. You can see it right there. It's just a little box. You connect it on the back of the console, and all it does is tap into the component signal of the console and literally just convert the signal through the HDMI port. For all intents and purposes, this little box is this cable. There is no difference on the hardware level. They output the same image, the same resolution, the same clarity, the same graphics. It's all exactly the same. The only difference is that this one has 5 little cables at the end, and this one will have 1 when it's connected to your television. So this is an item of convenience, or should be. I know this isn't really a review about this device, but I do have to give warnings if anybody out there wants to look into this, because I wish someone had warned me before I wasted my money on this. This thing has a couple of flaws. One is it requires a power source. There's a Wii to HDMI thing that's very similar, however it doesn't require a power source, which is quite nice. This one does. Now, it's not actually the most annoying thing in the world, because what it requires is USB power. Great, you plug in this little cable that it comes with, and you wrap it around, and you can plug it into the USB ports on the front of the console, and it's self-powered. So then you really are just putting up with this wire that just looks unattractive. Okay, that's fine, except for one really dumb design flaw. See, if you plug it into the back of the console, as I have just done, you'll notice that it hangs off the bottom. Which means if you want to put your console up like this, you can't, because it just doesn't have enough space there. You either have to keep it down on its side, which is what I do anyway, or you have to have it hanging off of the edge of your desk or wherever you have it kept, because otherwise you won't be able to do this. So be aware of that. There's a couple other flaws with this thing too. One is something that I guess isn't really a flaw, it's just something you need to know, which is you have to adjust the settings in the console. This also goes for the cables, by the way. You have to adjust the settings in the console for component to take advantage of either of them. And that setting is, you have to go into the video settings, and there's 2 options. There's RGB, which is what it probably says if you've been using Composite, and you have to switch it over to the other one, which is like YPBPR or something like that, which means component. And if you don't do that, these won't show up. So you kind of have to configure it with composite cables and then disconnect it and replace it with these. Once you have done that, they will work. Unless you have the flaw that I had, which is that my TV, for whatever reason, does not support 480i through its HDMI ports. It does through its component ports, its composite ports, its S-video ports, all the others, 480i, no problem, it's got it all day long. HDMI port won't do it. Like I said, this console really only displays at 480i. It's capable of higher resolutions, yes, but almost never used them. 99.999% of the time, it didn't use them. So, as a result, I can't use this thing. If I plug it into my TV, it just says error. So, well, it says not supported format. So what I'm telling you is, if you're going to think about getting the PS2 to HDMI, make sure that your TV supports, or your monitor, whatever you're using, supports 480i through its HDMI port. Not just in general, because my TV does support it in general, just not through HDMI specifically. So be aware of that. Now, the last piece of information I need to give you here before we depart, when you make your choice on what you want to do, is, as I mentioned, the PS2 has really bad video quality, and this isn't going to blow your mind. When I've connected other consoles through their optimum outputs, the original Xbox, for example, when you hook it up through component, it's night and day. Even the Sega Genesis, you hook that up through RGB SCART, amazing. The PS2 is like, oh, okay, it's better, I guess. Like, it improves, but it certainly will not impress you.
I figured I would just go ahead and actually show you this rather than just explain it to you. Now in the upper left corner, you'll always see what format we have the console connected through, and I went through a lot of them, so be patient. But you can always keep an eye on that. Now Composite, of course, was that first one, and don't worry, you're going to see it again. They're going to cycle back through, and you're going to see this main menu compared. But yeah, and then you can see RGB SCART, which is fine. It's more of an explosion of color, but again, it's not really recommended, although I'm sure some people will still dispute that. But again, upcoming here, you can see component. Now again, this is the best it gets as far as I'm concerned with the PS2. Natively, this is the best it's ever going to look, and it's disappointing, but it's definitely an improvement, as you may have noticed. Now, just for the sake of it, I threw in the PS2 to HDMI, which looks better on your television than it does in the capturing. I noticed in the capturing it looks a little off, the color's a little off, but, you know, take it with a grain of salt. And then for the hell of it, I threw in I have a launch PS3 that plays PS2 games, so I put that in there, and so that way you get to see what it looks like through that. It's better on a TV than it is in recording. And finally, the reason I picked Ratchet & Clank is, of course, the HD collection. And you can see, wow, does the HD collection look a lot better. And then we go back to Composite, and you can see how different that really is. Now, it's unfair somewhat to compare it to the HD collection, so let's just look back at these. Now, you'll see how much the image quality actually improves from one to the next. And the idea behind something like the HD collection is that once you get the better cables in there, you can improve the image clarity, and then the next thing you can improve upon is the resolution, which of course the PS2 in of itself can't do, and that's why the PS3 HD collection looks so much better, because you have the better cables for the better clarity, and then on top of that, the better resolution. Yet the graphics never changed. They are exactly the same graphics. It's very important to understand the distinction between those three things. They're completely different. First comes the image clarity, which you have to try and get as good as possible. Then you focus on resolution, assuming you can, and then graphics. So that'll pretty much do it. I want to thank you guys for watching. I hope this helps you guys figure out the difference and what you need to go out and get. Again, I recommend component cables for the PS3 to be used on the PS2. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all later.